Hey guys, welcome back to Meryl's Music Room. Today is Tuesday and we are going to be discussing one of the instruments of the orchestra. The instrument that we are discussing today is the clarinet. It's one of my favorite woodwind instruments. One of the things that makes the woodwind family unique is that it uses a lot of different types of instruments. So for example, you have the clarinet, then you also have the flute, and most of you guys will know that the flute is going to look a lot different. It's going to be made out of different materials, and the way it makes it sound is going to be a little bit different. So next week when we talk about the flute, I will talk about why it is part of the woodwind family, even though it does not make it sound the same way, and it is also not made out of the same materials. So just be ready for that. So this instrument is called the clarinet. Traditionally, they are made out of wood, and they're usually painted black like this. You can see some in some different colors because they are wood, so some people do take advantage of that and use it to make either brown or some other kind of crazy colors. You can find some now that are made out of what's called resin. It's kind of like a plasticky material. It is more durable than a wooden clarinet. However, the sound quality is not quite as good, and that's just because the material that the vibrations are being pushed through. Now, you're going to notice on the clarinet there are a lot of different buttons and keys because unlike the brass instrument where you can adjust the note using your mouth, you cannot do that as much on this instrument. So they have a lot of different keys to play, tons of different notes on here, and they can play high notes and they can play low notes. This is one of the higher instruments in the woodwind family, and there are a ton of different kinds of clarinets. This one is just your typical B-flat clarinet. There are some bigger ones like a bass clarinet, contrabass clarinet. There's some slightly higher ones in this one as well. So it is kind of a very broad-ranging instrument as far as how high or how low it can go, just depending on the size. So this instrument is called a clarinet. On this, there are some holes here, and unlike some other instruments where the holes have a little covering, so you just press down the hole, press down the button, and it covers the hole, these you actually have to cover with your fingers because there is no covering for the finger holes. Kind of like the recorder, for those of you guys that have gotten to play the recorder with me already, so you got to make sure you cover up all those holes, and that can be a little bit challenging. It's one of the difficult parts of this instrument. Now, the reason that this instrument is so unique is because it uses what's called a reed to make it sound, and a reed is just a very thin piece of I'm not really sure what kind of material, what kind of wood it is. I think this one's made out of bamboo. But it's a very thin piece of wood. If you tell right here, it's paper thin up here at the very, very top. And you put it on the mouthpiece of the clarinet like this. Most of the instruments in the woodwind family use some sort of reed. Whether it's a single reed like this one, the clarinet, bass clarinet, saxophone, all use single reeds. There are some double reeds, which I don't know if we'll get around to getting to talk about, that use a two-sided reed, kind of like this one, which would be the oboe and the bassoon. And the other instruments in the woodwind family would be the flutes, and we're going to talk about them next week because they're a little different, they're a little weird. But for the most part, most of the instruments in the woodwind family use a reed to make sound. And then they're also normally made out of wood. Now there are some exceptions for that. The saxophone obviously would not be made out of wood, it is made out of metal. And then the flute is also nowadays made out of metal. But for the most part, these instruments in the woodwind family are made out of wood, and they play with a reed, with some exceptions, and we're going to talk about some exceptions a little bit later. Now, when you play the clarinet, you put the reed side down in your mouth, and you blow through. You want to make sure that your reed is a little bit wet, because if it's not a little bit wet, it will not vibrate. The way these instruments make sound is that when you blow through this very, very small opening here, it cuts the air in half, and it causes this little piece of wood to vibrate right here. If you didn't have the reed on here, it would not make a sound. So the reed is very, very important. And you push down the button, and you blow. I think I could play some Mary Had a Little Lamb for you guys. It's been a little while since I played this instrument. composer of the week, who is Giuseppe Verdi. I'm going to link some pieces of music for him, as well as the clarinet, in the comments below. So make sure you check those out. For Thursday, we are going to be doing the body percussion song, FOE Tai Tai A. It's one of my favorites. It's very beautiful. And then for Friday, for our STEAM activity, we are going to be making cup telephones. For that, you are going to need 2 disposable cups. And if you don't have any extras, you can recycle the ones that you used for your chicken cluster last week. It will work for that. And then a long piece of string. So I have some twine here that I'm going to use for mine. If you have yarn, that will work as well. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow.